Well, my name is Raquel Katigbak. I'm an IBM Global Client Partner looking after technology and innovation across industries. And specifically in the Metaverse space, I've been working with our clients, enterprise clients across multiple industries to really understand their strategy, as well as execute and build and trial virtual experiences, particularly within the Metaverse, and really seeing how they can create new value models around these immersive engagements that they want to drive for internally as well as with clients. I mean, I think if you're a scale-up business, it really depends on the strategy that you have, right? So there's many different participants within a metaverse ecosystem that scale-up businesses should be going after. So one for sure is around generative AI. So how can we, what essentially is a predictive text mechanism at scale, right, that has a lot of hype behind it, how can you as a scale-up business start to leverage those kinds of tools and drive them in an ethical way so that we make sure that we have purpose-driven interactions and engagement in that space. I think that another area of really big opportunity is around data, and then user-centric design and permission around data. So when we talk about marketplaces within the metaverse and virtual commerce, there's also going to be it's not just about selling the next lipstick or selling the next car, it's really around what individuals can do about selling their own data to finally start to generate some revenue and monetization from what has been today largely a third party selling of our data. So I think there are scale-ups around the data space and the security space and this ethical design space, which are going to be fundamental for creating that North Star of the metaverse that we discussed earlier. In terms of where we've come so far with the metaverse, I think we're like probably 1/3 of the way fully there to what I would consider the fully interoperable, fully virtual, immersive metaverse space. There's been a lot of developments from a technology perspective and experience perspective, as well as a number of startups that are trying to accelerate the path towards that end state. But it's going to be a constantly evolving capability, right? So part of the discussions in the panel earlier today were around Web3 and what is the role of Web3 and the intersection between the metaverse. So I do think that there has been a lot of developments from a technology perspective as well as a principles perspective that has enabled us to get this far, but there's still so much more to go because it is going to take an ecosystem. It's going to take a collective, right? It's not just enterprise and consumers, but also governments, standards bodies, as well as the whole, startup environment along with large-scale enterprise to really make it work. Those industries that are the most ahead right now are retailers, as well as, in my case, what I'm seeing is automotive and financial services, primarily because they have a lot of marketing. There's a lot of marketing money being invested in the metaverse today, right? Because people do tend to see this as another channel, just an extension of digital, which I think is correct. So one of the things that I'm really exploring right now is how we start to balance Web 2 and Web 3. How do we create that intersection today so that there is a pathway forward that is not such a direct jump off a cliff into the metaverse ocean, right? So how do we generate a bridge between Web 2, Web 3? So part of that is understanding how retailers want to leverage the metaverse to, for example, build up virtual stores very, very quickly, try new campaigns, try new branding, try new launches in a way that's going to be faster, more efficient, and can also scale because, of course, the physical world cannot scale as broadly as the digital world. So those are things that I'm seeing retailers really get excited about in the same way that they can sell and showcase new products and offerings to the world. They can also then drive through really user-centric journeys, the journey from the virtual world to the physical world, going into an actual store and buying the product as well. From an automotive industry perspective, I think this is really where you see these virtual showrooms. Again, it is another way of just exploring the digital spaces and how automotive manufacturers can actually potentially accelerate the whole journey to a dealership. And I think from a user perspective, a consumer perspective, a driver perspective, you could really leverage the space to really get information that is non-biased about the car that you have that you're gonna start to investigate. So once you have an ability to actually virtually step into a car, at the same time, real-time change all the options. See what can come up as a package offering, what that would mean with insurance, what that would mean on a carbon impact footprint perspective. That starts to just shape information that you may not have been able to get in a real dealership. And that's why I think this differentiation between the real world and the virtual world starts to make a lot more sense, and why the investment in those spaces is really coming up. I mean, for me personally, the endpoint of the metaverse is, again, going back to purpose-driven capability, right? We don't want to rebuild the metaverse in the same way that we have Web 2.0 today, because I think that would just be a complete disregard for the sanctity of humanness and our own agency as individuals to have control over how our data and our behavior is being used and monetized. I would love to see that end goal of the metaverse being a place where people feel safe to participate, they're secure in what they're doing, they know exactly what is happening to the data and who's using it, and that we are getting offers and monetization opportunities on the basis of what we're consenting to provide to that ecosystem. And then from an enterprise perspective, I think it's an opportunity to really accelerate innovation. Again, this is really around how we can leverage these virtual spaces and virtual experiences to go and try new things in a way that's going to be very quick and easy. And it's a lot easier to delete a line of code or delete a 3D asset rather than taking a sledgehammer to a building, or a job site, right? So the way that I think that for enterprise, this is really a neat way of leveraging and stepping into that whole ecosystem space. How do we drive those ecosystem relationships and partnerships in the digital world, in this virtual world, that could also make it into the physical world? So this whole phygital angle, I think, is a really interesting one to explore. That for me is really the end state of how Metaverse should be used.